We are in a really crazy time right now for buyers when it comes to this market. We are in a seller's market and it is dog eat dog and it is super competitive. And I've been kind of mulling over what are some potential like big picture solutions or alternatives to this madness. Hey, it is the Artsy Realtor here. My name is Glenice Johnson with ArtformHomes, brokered by eXp Realty. And I wanted to take some time out today to talk about what I feel like could be a potential solution to the crazy competitive seller's market madness, right? Buyers are having to do more and more crazy things in order to get their offers accepted, down to, paying a certain amount of money over the appraised value of a home, waiving inspections, not even requiring repairs, just things that honestly, let's be real, a lot of us either we can't afford or we're really not willing to do that because it just feels ridiculous, right? Understood. But in this market, we just, as buyers, you just don't have any leverage. So I've been contemplating, okay, what do we do? So I've been kind of researching other alternatives and other things that I don't feel are as heavily utilized. So in comes the potential for a renovation loan. So have you considered a renovation loan? I want to talk about, there are about 4 renovation loans that I want to talk about on this channel. I'm going to go over 2 of them today because they are pretty similar to loans that I've talked about in the past. They're basically the sisters of these 2 particular loans, and that's the FHA and the conventional. So we're going to talk about today the 203K section of the FHA loan and the Fannie Mae HomeStyle conventional renovation loan. Essentially, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the 203K FHA than I am going to be about the conventional because, like I said, they're kind of tethered to the originals. But the 203K, I feel like just like the regular FHA loan is probably going to be a little bit more accessible because it's for those of us who maybe have a lower credit score. Our credit score is not super high. We don't have as much money to bring to the closing table, all that good stuff. This is a means to be able to pursue a renovation loan on a house that may not be as hot because it needs a lot of work done or it's in an area that's not as favorable. This is a means of being able to create your dream home situation, make an art form out of it, if you will. So I'm going to talk about the 203K loan first. I'm going to go through some pros and cons, and then I'm just generally going to compare it to the conventional because, like I said, they're kind of similar to their sister loans, but it's just going into the actual specifics of the renovation. Okay, so I got notes. So let's talk about the 203K FHA loans, like the 203K section of the FHA loan. So essentially it allows you to finance the house as well as the needed repairs. Now this kind of solves the problem that you find a lot with just the general FHA loan, and it's got some repair restrictions, meaning that the house has to be, it can't have any health or safety defects, right? Because a federally insured loan is not going to give you a loan on a house that's going to affect your health and safety because that's a liability, right? So this kind of solves that problem because you don't have to worry about the seller, repairing anything that's health and safety because you're gonna renovate the house anyway. And honestly, those health and safety, with this particular loan, the 203K loan, those health and safety issues it's a priority. It's mandatory for those to be prioritized first. Then you can go in and kind of see about getting your cosmetic wish list taken care of, right? So it helps solve that problem. Now the house does have to be livable. It can't be like just a pile of wood and glass. It has to be somewhat livable in order for it to be eligible. But anything that's at least a year old can qualify. You borrow against the after repair value, or the APR. So instead of like a regular loan is going to borrow against the actual value of the home. That's why an appraisal is so important. With a 203K, with any renovation loan, either this or the HomeStyle, you're borrowing against the after repair value. That's the value of the home after it has been renovated, right? And you can borrow, I think, up to 110% of that. So there's two types. Let me scroll up on that real quick. So there's two types. So the first one is going to be the streamlined 203K, and the other one's going to be the full or the standard. So the streamlined, there's a few limitations. So streamlined has a maximum renovation budget of about $35,000. Now it's important to consider all of when you have your contractor do a bid, it's important for them to kind of come maybe around $30,000, because there are a few fees that are associated with it that you'll need to factor into that full amount. So $35,000 is the maximum. You also cannot do any structural changes. So I know you see a lot maybe on HGTV, like shows like Property Brothers and Love It or Listed, those demolition renovation shows, or they're taking a hammer and they're knocking on walls. You cannot do that with this streamline. This is only for handling your health and safety defects. So repairing any appliances like your HVAC and your roof and things like that need to be taken care of, and then doing any cosmetic things that you may want to have done. Okay, so that's the streamline. A little bit about that. There's more to it, but it's just a little bit about that. The full or standard one, you can do structural changes. There's no maximum budget on this one, but there is a minimum, I believe, of about $5,000. I mean, you gotta be doing something. Also, with the standard version of the 203K, you're required to have a HUD consultant to kind of come in, consult with you about the actual changes that you're making, to help you to make sure you know what you're doing. It's someone that's usually done years of contracting work. They come in as a consultant to kind of supervise that project, so to speak, or at least supervise the plans that you have for it, because the work doesn't start until you close, right? All right, so you have to hire a certified contractor to do your bid and to do the work. They have to be a certified contractor. You can't DIY this one. And it's also important to make sure they are fully professional and have possibly been able to do at least 1 or 2 or 3K loans before, because there's a lot of paperwork that they themselves need to submit, and they also need to be able to properly price the work that's going to be required, because overbidding can be a huge issue. Because keep in mind, an appraiser is going to come in, and of course, just like any general loan, the appraiser is going to come in and determine the value of the home. With the 2 or 3K loan, the appraiser is going to come in, they're going to determine the value of the home, and they're going to factor in the costs of those renovations based on the bid from the contractor, and then give you the after repair value. So it's important that those numbers are as on point as possible, because if you have to change the numbers, then you got to pay for a new appraisal, and appraisals are not cheap. Okay, so it's important to have that. So the work begins after closing. So during the escrow period, you are, of course, you find your contractor does the bid. That bid's got to be approved, and that you got to be able to, and the amount of the house along with the cost of the renovation still has to be within your maximum budget that you were pre-approved for, so that all of that, along with your general, getting approved for the loan, having to go through underwriting, getting all your necessary documents in, all of that needs to be approved before the loan can close. But then the loan closes, and then the work starts. Now, as far as those expenses towards the renovation, that money is put into another account that is utilized to pay the vendor. And you can have more than one vendor. It's probably not as, probably not as helpful to have more than one vendor, because you have more than one person that's got to do paperwork and all that other stuff. It's good to have maybe one contractor that's got, different employees underneath them. But however, that money goes into account to pay that vendor. They get 50% up front, and then 50% once the work is completed. So pros of this 203K loan. My favorite pro so far is that you can build equity fast. Keep in mind, You think about all these shows you see on HGTV when they're doing a renovation, and they always do the math on the side, and they talk about the original cost of the home, the amount of money that went into the renovation, and then they show you the after repair value and how it's significantly more and you gained a profit or a little bit of equity. That's my favorite part about this, because when you're out here just in the regular market, you are lucky to be able to even snag a piece of equity, because at this point you're guaranteeing to pay a certain amount over out of your pocket, because keep in mind the bank is only going to give you what it appraises for, and for order for you to be competitive and be able to snag the acceptance on your offer, you're having a promise to give a certain amount over the appraised value. So you're putting money into the house that's above what it's actually, you know what I'm saying, what it's actually worth. So this allows you to be able to get a big chunk of equity right off. That's amazing. That's my favorite part. Next pro is that it's less competition. You're out here, you are one of 20 offers on a house. With this alternative, you know, consider choosing a house that may not be in a hot market. Right now, it seems like the hot areas, it really seems like any area is a hot area, but areas where it's like crazy, you got Hoover, you got Pelham, a lot of Shelby County because of, you know, the taxes. You got Calera, you got Alabaster, maybe a little bit further up, maybe your Vestavia, of course, Mountain Brook. But areas like, you know, maybe Center Point, or areas like Fultondale, Graysville, maybe Hueytown. Hueytown's still kind of hot. I love Hueytown. Hueytown, I've lived there for over 15 years. It's one of the best kept secrets in my opinion. It's really quiet town. Everybody over there be minding their business, but there's no, like, it's a great area to live in. But I've noticed that sometimes, depending if they're on those outskirts, over towards the west, for what it seems like, it doesn't seem like those areas go as quickly as your Helena, your Hoover, your Calera, your Alabaster, your Pelham. That's just what I've seen. So being willing to choose. Now, a lot of times I know people want to live in those areas because they seem a little bit closer to downtown, because most people tend to work, you know, in downtown. However, if you're willing to make a little bit of a longer commute, choose an area that's a little bit quiet, people are not paying too much attention to it, with the house is a little older, needs a little bit of work. You can go in with this 203K loan, get some renovations done, and make it the house of your dreams. Be able to snag some equity in that, and now you've got your home. Now you are a homeowner. Now you're gaining equity, which is the goal. The goal is to utilize, for me, my mission is to help people to utilize homeownership and real estate to build wealth for them and their families. So this is a big plus, to be able to kind of eliminate that competition, to make it easier for you to swoop in and be able to get a home. Also considering, even if you were going into the competition, you have leverage with the ability to not require repairs from the seller. You can tell in your offer, you can waive the whole inspection contingency, still get your inspections. However, if you want to, because considering the contractor is going to go in and do the bid on all the work that needs to be done. But yes, you don't have to require repairs from the seller. That's going to be a huge point for them to consider in that competitive environment. All right. So I said this one already, but you can create your dream home for less. So you can go in, find a house that's cheaper, get a discount, go in, renovate it, get some equity, make it look the way you want to, because you can, you know, get the cosmetic stuff you want done. If you get a full one, you can get some walls and stuff moved around. I mean, you really can make this situation, you know, what you want it to be. Like, it's just, and you can kind of step away from the madness of the competition and taking a house just as it is, not being able to get any repairs on it. I mean, it's a great alternative. Okay, next pro is going to be, it gives you, I already said that, it gives you leverage in the inspection contingency. Another one is about the same qualifications as a regular FHA loan. You're still putting down 33.5%. Now, I've heard When I've talked to a couple of lenders about this, when I was kind of researching this and trying to gather some vendors that I can talk to, that can have on hand if people are interested in a 203K loan, talk to certain vendors and they're just like, hey, you know, a lot of times people don't want to do the 203K because it can seem like it's a lot more expensive, because you're doing that 3.5% not just on the house, but also adding in the renovation value. And to me, I think about it like this. If your maximum budget for the purchase of the house and renovation, because all that's going to be lumped in together for one loan, just like if you're just getting a loan for the price of a house by itself, your maximum budget is $200,000 and you buy a house for $120,000 and you need $30,000 for the renovation cost. So your loan is $150,000. It's $50,000 still below your budget, but it's, to me, for the same price of just buying a house, it's $150,000. Not only are you buying a house, you're paying for the means to renovate the house, and you're also creating an opportunity to snag equity for yourself. I don't see a con. I don't, yeah, anyway. Again, and the home and the renovation budget is all bundled into one mortgage. So you're making one payment, and you're saving on the interest because you're not dealing with two separate loans. Okay, so those are the pros for that. There are more than that, but those are ones I wanted to highlight. So some cons of this loan is that it can be a longer process. It can. The lender that I'm currently working with, because I currently have a client that is pursuing a 203K loan, and the lender that I'm working with, I asked them, okay, what's, you know, I haven't done this one before, so what's gonna be a good time frame? Tell me about 45 days. Give yourself a cushion of about 45 days. I've also heard 60 as well, depending on the situation, because you have to get a contractor. Contractors got to do the bid. We've got to get those appraisals. We got to get all that approved. It's way more paperwork. It can be a little bit more extensive, so it can be longer. And granted, if you're in a situation, if you're wanting to get into the competitive space and buy a house that's a little bit older, but it's still in a hot market, you know, you can do a trade-off in your offer where, like, hey, the seller's willing to do a little bit longer. He doesn't have to do repairs, you know, just a strategy that you can use. But yeah, that is a con. Another con is the contractor has to be certified, and again, you cannot DIY this situation. Also, a lot of times, a lot of contractors don't necessarily want to mess with the 203K because of all the paperwork that's involved. However, I'm sure that's not every contractor. You can find a contractor, he gonna get paid, you know, or she will get paid, maybe willing to do it. So yeah, that is a con for sure. It can be a little bit more tedious. And also, again, making sure you get someone that's professional, that may have done a 2 or 3K loan before and is able to properly price the work that needs to be done, so that it's not overbid and you have to change the numbers and then have to get a new appraisal to reflect that. Also, another con of the 203K is that you cannot purchase luxury products, which they consider luxury products to be pools, tennis courts, and outdoor kitchens. Who's gonna get that? We trying to get the house. Ain't nobody worried about no pool. And sometimes, a lot of times, pools are more maintenance than they're worth. So I don't consider that a con. I'm a little biased, y'all. I'm sorry. I don't consider that a con because, you know, you're not really focused on that right now. However, it can be a con if that's what you really want. And again, of course, more paperwork. So those are the cons of the 203K. So your trade-off is you're dealing with, you got to do a little bit more work. You got to be a little bit more knowledgeable. You got to do a little bit more elbow grease, but you may be opening up some opportunity for yourself to be able to really make an attempt at, you know, becoming a homeowner in a way that doesn't have you out here literally throwing money at a house in the cellar. Because honestly, that's where we're at right now. That is where we're at. That's why in most of my videos, if it's required for me to say it, if I'm talking about things that you need to be doing to prepare for this market, one of the biggest things is save aggressively. Because yes, you can get down payment assistance. Yes, you can get something where your closing costs are covered and things like that, but there's still so much money that you have to contribute to the whole process. Not just including earnest money, not just including inspections and getting those vendors out there for inspections. A lot of times you just gotta have money just to be competitive. Again, paying money over the appraisal, doing an escalation clause, just guaranteeing a whole bunch of things that involve having money come out of your pocket. So, all right, so that is essentially 203K. There's more details about 203K, but I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the hot button things. I want to compare it. Oh, a couple more things for 203K before I move on. Another thing is with the 203K loan, this is another con, you do have to stay within the budget. Especially if you're getting the streamline. Now, I know with the full, there's no maximum budget, but with you get the streamline. You don't have any structural things. You can't do anything structural, and it's a maximum budget of $35,000. With that, you have to stay in that budget. So if there are a lot of health and safety things going on, remember those are mandatory to get taken care of first, and then you can squeeze in your cosmetic wish list. So you may not be able to get everything that you want. That's one thing. And also, you have to live in this house for at least 12 months before you are out of it, and you may want to have someone to come in and rent it. So this could be an avenue for investing, but it's not if you trying to, cop a house, flip it, and have it rented out as soon as it's done being renovated. That may not be, if that's what you're trying to do, this may not be long, because you do have to live in it. So it is a strategy towards investment, but you kind of got to finesse it a little bit and, kind of work it again. It's going to involve some time spent. So I think that's it for the 203K. Let's compare it to the HomeStyle conventional renovation loan. Again, this one is the sister of just a general conventional loan. And if you've looked at a video that I've done before when I talked about the conventional loan, essentially the conventional loan is just a little bit more freedom in exchange for a little bit stricter requirements on your end for as far as credit and financial standing. So the HomeStyle loan is the conventional version of this renovation loan. You can do some of the work yourself. You can DIY a little bit, but it cannot account for more than 10%. You still need a contractor. You still need someone out there doing the work. I can imagine these shows where the family members are in there hitting the hammer. They probably have this HomeStyle loan. If that's their, they've got a budget, and they're always talking about, this is our budget to do all this for the reno, for the price of the home, all that good stuff, and you see them in there with the kids and they're knocking holes in the wall. This is probably the loan that they're using, but I digress. So you can do a little bit of the work yourself. So unlike an FHA loan, and this is similar to just a regular conventional, the mortgage insurance payments stop at 20% equity. That's the same for a regular conventional loan. But consider this: you are undertaking having to renovate a home where you have the potential to snag some equity right off the top, because you're going into a house that you already bought for significant, probably cheaper, because the seller knew they had a lot of work that need to be done, and you're renovating it, and then you're increasing the value to potentially snag a lot of equity, and you can cancel your mortgage payments at 20%. Who's to say you don't get for 20% right off as soon as you're finished with the renovations? Like, that's great. That's great. You can use this for any style home, including vacations and investment properties. So for investors, this is more so of the loan that will be more flexible for you if you're trying to buy, renovate, and rent out. Now, if you're trying to do a flip, you may be more interested in a hard money loan, which is one that's a little bit more short term. I think there's like higher interest, but they're kind of accommodating the process of you buying a home, renovating it, and then putting it back on the market and being able to sell it in a shorter amount of time. So that may be the loan that you need to pursue if you're just trying to do a flip. But for this one, because it's still a 30 or 15-year fixed or just a mortgage rate. So it's just like a loan. It's still a loan that has those same kind of terms, just like a regular loan if you're just buying a house to live in. So that's something to consider. You can add luxury items. You can get your pool. You can get your outdoor kitchen. You can add your tennis court if you wanted to do that. Comparison to FHA for this one, you need to put down 5% for the HomeStyle loan versus the normal 3.5% with FHA. Okay, and then just like the regular conventional loan, there are stricter requirements and a higher requirement for your debt to income ratio and your credit score and all those things. Okay, so that is essentially, I just wanted to compare the conventional to the FHA because it's about the same for both programs. They're about as similar of the requirements to their sister loans that don't have the renovation attached to it, but it's just involving those details of the renovation. If you are eligible for a 203K, more than likely you are eligible for, if you're eligible for just a general FHA, more than likely you're eligible for a 203K, and so on and so forth for the conventional. So I wanted to highlight those because I do believe this can be an alternative to the chaotic seller's market. If you're going out trying to buy a home and you don't need anybody to make any repairs, you can make the repairs yourself because you got a 203K loan, and you have the opportunity to choose how your house will look because you can control the new things that are added and the cosmetic changes that happen. So you don't have to worry about when you go into a house, number one, that you're already having to compete for, and seeing things that you don't like that you guys kind of have to deal with. So I feel like it feels like a win-win. So that's something to consider. If you've got any more questions, please feel free to schedule a consultation with me with my Calalindy. The link is in the description box. I definitely want to get your questions answered, and I definitely have 203K lenders that I connect you with to get even more in-depth questions answered. Because I just know surface information to kind of get you on your way. The lenders, just like in any situation when it comes to buying a home in general, talking to a lender is going to be the #1 way to get all of those questions answered. So if you need that connection, let me know. Just reach out to me and I'm happy to connect you. But that's all I got for today. Y'all have a good one. Much love, take care, and I'll talk to you later.